So NVIDIA announced DLSS 2.0 with much fanfare in late March, showcasing the revamped deep learning-based image reconstruction technology in games like Control and MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. The first implementation of deep learning supersampling had relatively mixed results. While there were some good implementations such as Control itself, with previously used a CUDA-based version of DLSS, plenty of others had issues introducing blurriness, for example. DLSS 2.0, on the other hand, has been extremely well received so far in, well, the 4 games where it's been available. Now, what changed? Well, luckily for those who are really curious about what goes on behind the scenes, NVIDIA's senior research scientist Edwin Liu explained exactly what makes DLSS 2.0 such a big upgrade over the previous version in a GTC 2020 talk that was published recently on NVIDIA's website. It's an extremely interesting presentation, though fairly long, in about 48 minutes. Well, we've summarized the key points for you here for your convenience. There are 2 possible approaches to image super resolution rendering: single image and multi-frame. The former is perhaps more commonly used and known, as it is usually achieved through mirror interpolation filters like bicubic, bilinear, Landscope, spline, and nearest neighbor, etc. That's what happens when most video upscaling software. Lately, though, deep neural networks have been used to hallucinate new pixels after training. An example of this ESRGAN, the Enhanced Super Resolution Generative Adversarial Networks model, which several AI enhanced texture packs for older games are based on. The image reconstruction through interpolation filters are, simply put, lacking too much detail compared to the native image. DNNs do a better job in this regard, but since they are hallucinating new pixels, the result may be inconsistent with the native image. And you can see in the comparison, the left image features vastly different tree bushes compared to the native image. Now, NVIDIA deems this unacceptable for DLSS, as the goal is to stay as close as possible to the ground truth image, as well as the original creative vision of the game developer. Another major issue is that the resulting image is often temporally unstable, featuring flickering, for example. In order to solve this issue, NVIDIA opted for a multi-frame super resolution approach when it comes to DLSS 2.0. This allows accumulating multiple low-resolution frames to craft a high-resolution frame, which makes restoring true details much easier. Now, this is what happens with spatial temporal upsampling techniques like the now ubiquitous temporal anti-aliasing and checkerboard rendering, with the latter being the popular choice among developers for PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X consoles. Since these reconstruction techniques use samples from multiple frames, they're much less likely to encounter temporal instability issues like flickering. Additionally, while each frame, the shading rate is kept low to achieve strong performance. The effective sampling rate is drastically increased due to the multi-frame reconstruction approach. That's not to say there are no issues with TAA or CR, since they are content changes when rendering games in real time. The scenes are continuously dynamic after all. Natively assuming previous frames will be correct could easily lead to artifacts like ghosting or lagging. Usually these problems are handled with heuristics-based history rectification from the invalid samples of previous frames. Now that comes with the other issues of its own, such as the reintroduction of temporal instability, blurriness, and moire patterns. One of the most commonly used heuristics models is neighboring clamping, which works by clamping samples from previous frames to minimum and maximum of the neighboring current frame samples. This does strike a decent balance to avoid the shortcomings mentioned, but it can prevent a rather significant loss of detail you can see in this image. Now, NVIDIA is solving this issue by exploiting the power of its supercomputer, which is trained offline on tens of thousands of extremely high-quality images. Neural networks are simply much more suited to the task than handcrafted heuristics, as they can find the optimal strategy to combine samples collected over multiple frames, delivering much higher quality reconstructions in the end. Its data-driven approach is one that allows DLSS 2.0 to successfully reconstruct even complex situations like those with moire patterns. The image comparisons are thoroughly impressive, surpassing even native images more often than not, while doing a 4x upscaling from 540p to 1080p. Now, none of that was previously possible with the old DLSS model. Of course, NVIDIA's ultimate goal with DLSS 2.0 is to deliver great performance, and it certainly does with very minimum overhead. The added cost is almost trivial, and it takes just 1.5 milliseconds for an RTX 2080 Ti graphics card while rendering at a 4K resolution. Now, just as exciting as adding DLSS 2.0 is that it's going to be much easier for developers. Not only because there's an Unreal Engine 4 branch now, and the generalization neural model doesn't have to be trained per game anymore, but mostly because the MultiFrame approach means that it will be very easy to implement DLSS 2.0 in the games and engines that already support temporal anti-aliasing. And there's lots of them. For more on this and other news, follow the link in the description and make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell so that we don't miss you in the next one.